So winter is coming, and that doesn't mean your e-biking has to come to an end. It's actually where these bikes excel. They love winter, they love going out there in the mud and getting covered in it. There's a few little steps and little hacks we can do to our bikes to get the most out of the bikes and protect them from all that mud, water and the nastiness out there this winter. It's a great little tip when you get out on the trails is to stop that mud getting into your bike or sticking to your bike anywhere. A real prime trap for this is actually on the fork arch behind here. It's machined out, so it means it's nice and rigid and stiff, but what it does leave us with is a load of cavities that are a mud trap, especially that front wheel turning, firing the mud into those gaps. It's a really good way for winter is to actually tape this off. Just get some tape, like some cloth tape, and close all that off so it's just one smooth surface. That way any mud on there is just going to fall off, or where you come to wash that bike it's just going to blast off. You don't have to spend ages in there with a little brush or toothbrush trying to get that mud out. So just remember, time to time, peel that tape away, let any moisture or water that is trapped behind there just escape. It'll obviously stop things corroding behind there. Just any little gap you can see where you think it might be a mud trap, it's worth just taping it off. Remember, a heavy bike will drain that battery more, it's going to weigh more, it's just not going to be as nice to ride as a bike that is lighter. So let's talk brakes when it comes to winter. Organic pads are going to give you that more bite and a bit more stopping power on the trails, but they're going to last 5 minutes with all that grinding and slushy stuff you're going to get on your rotors from the winter. Strongly advised sticking a set of sintered pads into that. They're going to last a hell of a lot longer out on the trails. They're made of little metal filings and a lot harder compound. They might not be as strong, but they're definitely going to last a hell of a lot longer. Stick a set of those in your winter riding. It's going to be more time on the trails and less in the workshop. Needless to say, before you hit the trails, just make sure those brakes are bedded in nice and strong. You don't want to go crazy and go crashing off on the first corner. So another thing I like to do before winter kicks in as well, just make sure all my contacts and my battery connections are all nice and clean as well. Just check the seals around there, all in good condition too, because if any water gets into these parts, it's going to cause you a nightmare out on the trail. Just give them a good quick clean with a bit of contact cleaner. Just make sure they're nice and clean. Also in the battery as well, give that a quick wipe round. Obviously make sure this is nice and dry before you put anything back together. And whilst you're there as well, it's also worth just lubing that key mechanism up, or whatever holds your battery into that bike, because if you can't get that key in to change your battery, if you're out on a big ride, you're going to be cursing too. So just make sure all those little bits that you might forget are all nicely lubed up. So when it comes to tyres for your e-bike, there's lots of options out there, including mud specific tyres that can be really aggressive. These are something I would probably steer clear of on your e-bike. They can be really vague when you're hitting the road or anything apart from deep mud. What I would go for is something that drives really well at the rear wheel, gives you lots of grip, and a real predictable tyre at the front, something that's going to really bite in when those conditions get loose. You stick something that's real heavy and high rolling resistance, you're going to be draining that battery, draining you, and not going to be making it a lot of fun out there on the trails. So when things get muddy out on the trails, an essential part of your kit is the mud guard. They come in lots of different shapes and sizes, different ways they fit to your bike, but basically a basic mud flap like this one, it's going to stop that spray coming up off the front wheels. It's going to stop all the mud going into your fork legs, over your battery and over you as well. So get basically a little flat one like this as a minimum. I'd run something like this if the mud, if it had been raining. When things get super muddy out there, you can't beat a big moto style mud guard. Basically the little flap one sits in the fork in here and just stops that mud flying up. Whereas the full moto one will fit into your bike, mounts in the same way, but has a lot more coverage. So it stops the mud flying up off the front of the wheel and the back of the wheel. If things get super muddy, you cannot simply beat a full moto style mud guard. Actually, you can get away without wearing any eyewear, things like that, especially in the winter. They are that good. So when it comes to mud guards for your e-bikes, there's plenty of options out there you can even make in your own home. A plastic water bottle or a drinks bottle makes a nice mud guard. Just cut the side of that off, craft it so it fits in your fork arch, put a couple of holes in there, zip tie, and you're ready. Another real nice way is finding an old bit of inner tube. Punch a couple of holes in here, a couple of holes in the lower part. All you need to do then, zip tie the top bit to your crown through here and here, a couple of holes through here and here, put the zip ties through. What you've created is a nice mud flap that stops all that water spray and stuff coming forward off that wheel and hitting you in the face and going all over your bike. Really effective mud guard that is for not a lot of money. So we've got the front wheel covered, but what about that back wheel? That's going to be firing up all mud all over you, all over your bike, all over your bum. So it's a really good idea to get that covered too. Unfortunately, there isn't many viable options when it comes to rear mudguards, especially on e-bikes. If you're pushing them hard out on the trails, they're going to be flapping around, snapping off, get sagging down with mud. So the only option is really to stick these little tiny flap style ones in. They won't really protect you, but what they will do is protect your bike. Basically, they clip on here, and then all that mud basically is collected, stops it firing up over the seat post, linkage plate, rear shocks. It's a really good way to protect your bike, not necessarily you. So let's talk lube when it comes to winter. Basically, you want to be putting that dry lube away. Dry lube you've used all summer in dry conditions, designed to be very low stick, so that means it doesn't pick up all that dust when you're out on the trails. When you switch to the wet lube, what the wet lube does is penetrate those rollers better in the chain, also clings to that chain a hell of a lot better so it doesn't get washed off when the rain starts coming down. Just remember, if it does get really nasty out there, stick a bit of that in your backpack and reapply that to the chain when things get nasty. When it comes to lubing that chain, just make sure you try and get it in a drip style bottle over the spray. If you're using the spray, it's quite easy to over lube that chain, and that will drift and go over that rear disc and contaminate your pads and stuff. The drip bottle is easy, it's a lot more direct, there's no risk of that getting onto your chain. Just make sure you've wiped off that excess off the chain once you've finished. So when it comes to winter, what it does create is a horrible grinding pace when it comes to riding your bike. Anywhere that's in contact with that grinding pace, be it your chain stays or seat stays, your crank arms and basically your frame are going to take a beating. So a nice way to protect that frame is just anywhere you can see a bit of cable rust, just stick on some of these clear protection patches over that nasty little bit of cable rub. That's going to stop that cable from rubbing through. In severe cases, if that cable's rubbing hard enough, it can actually wear through that frame, so just keep an eye on that as well. There's lots of kits available. They can actually cover your whole bike top to bottom in the clear tape. Things like your crank arms as well, you can get aftermarket crank covers for them, keeping those all nice and clean throughout the winter. So your gears hate winter as much as you do. Basically, there's an outer cable there that can fill with sand and grit and make your shifting a nightmare. What I like to do before every winter is get that outer cable, give it a good flush through with some lubricant, and add a fresh new cable in there too. Because if this thing fails out in the middle of winter, in the middle of nowhere, you can be kicking yourself. It's often overlooked, but a really good tip to do before the winter kicks in. So another really cool little tip that we see from the pros is when things get slippy and muddy, they actually apply a little bit of skateboard grip tape. It's basically sticky sandpaper. So all they do is apply it to their controls, so like the brake lever edges, just stick a little bit of that tape in there. Things like your dropper seat posts, gear levers, brake levers, anywhere that you touch them with your hands, things get slippy, add a bit of tape on there, adds a load of purchase and a load of feel to that. Just get sticking away on all those controls and make your riding non-slip this winter. So another nasty little mud trap is this fella here. It's the bottom of the steerer tube. Again, it's in that firing line of that front wheel. All that mud and water tries to enter the steerer tube. This is mostly aluminium, but the star-fangled nut is in fact steel. So obviously steel and water can rust. So any water going into that area is bad news. So what I would try and find is a little bung which you can wedge in the bottom of your steerer. Just make sure it's a nice snug fit. Plug that off. That'll stop any moisture getting in there and rusting the parts of that headset out, bearings, etc. Just make sure that's a nice snug fit. Pull it out again periodically, let that water drain away, and it should save you a lot of problems. So something that you can switch up for the winter is changing from your clipless pedals to flat pedals. Flat pedals in winter just allow you to dab that much quicker. You also don't fill up your cleats and stuff if you dab in and getting mud on the bottom of your shoes like clipless pedals can do. Also going to give you a bit more bike control. You might find yourself going into sections where you can let that bike float around a bit more, because you know that you can dab that foot if you need to. It's not necessarily a definite, but maybe a worth a go. Maybe inject a bit more fun into that winter riding or your eMTB. So that's it for this video. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video on how to winterize your e-bike. We've got loads of awesome content coming up over the next few months on getting ready for winter on your e-bike, so make sure you subscribe for those. Also, check out this awesome video on riding the slab. This is an epic ride me and Steve did as well. Just make sure you drop us some comments in the box below about winter riding. We'd love to hear about what you do to get ready for winter as well.